So again, we will do about the translation process. This is the third video. In the last two videos, we have discussed about the overview of translation, and we have done about up to the cloverleaf model, and also how the tRNA are charged. More information about the charging of tRNA, how amino acids are attached to a tRNA. Let us see. So let's get started now. So it is saying that each amino acid tRNA synthetase attaches a single amino acid to one or more tRNA. Well, each of the 20 amino acid is attached to the appropriate tRNA by a single dedicated tRNA synthetase. But I have also mentioned that most of the organism have 20 different types of tRNA synthetase. So the amino acyl tRNA synthetase varies between organisms. Like I have just said in the previous video lecture, that most organisms have 20 different tRNA synthetase, but this is not always the case. Like some bacteria lack a specific amino acyl tRNA synthetase for charging the tRNA for glutamine. So to charge the tRNA, to attach the tRNA with glutamine amino acid, that tRNA synthetase is absent in case of some bacterial cells. So that's why in the previous paragraph it has been written that each of the 20 amino acids is attached to the appropriate tRNA by a single dedicated tRNA synthetase, because most amino acids are specified by more than one codon, as most of the amino acids are specified by more than one codon, because there are 64 codons which we have to be code for 20 amino acids. So one codon is not enough, so there must be multiple codons that coding for the same amino acid. It is not uncommon for one synthetase to recognize and charge more than one tRNA. Okay, so it is saying in this way that there will be a single dedicated tRNA synthetase which will attach all the 20 amino acids with respective tRNA. Nevertheless, the same tRNA synthetase is responsible for charging all tRNA for a particular amino acid. Thus, one and only one tRNA synthetase attach each amino acid to all of the appropriate tRNA. But we have also seen that most of the organisms have 20 different tRNA synthetase, as I have mentioned before. But this is not always the case. Like some bacteria, they do not have a amino acyl tRNA synthetase for charging the tRNA for glutamine amino acid with its cognate amino acid. Instead, there is a specific amino acyl tRNA synthetase that charges tRNA glutamine as well as tRNA glycine as well as tRNA glutamate as well as tRNA with glutamate. So it means to say that I have said that some of the organisms, like some bacteria, they lack amino acyl tRNA synthetase for charging tRNA for glutamine, which is an amino acid. So what does it do? So how does tRNA attach with glutamine? Well, there is a specific tRNA synthetase. There is a specific amino acyl tRNA synthetase that charges tRNA with glutamate. The same amino acyl tRNA synthetase charges tRNA with glutamine also. So here only one amino acid tRNA synthetase which charges tRNA with glutamate also can able to attach tRNA with glutamine as well. A second enzyme then converts the glutamate moiety of the charged tRNA molecule to glutamine. So first what it does, these amino acyl tRNA synthetase is responsible for charging tRNA with glutamate, but it also charges tRNA with glutamine amino acid as well. How? How it is possible? Well, first tRNA amino acyl tRNA synthetase first charge that tRNA with glutamate. Then second, what happened? There will be a second enzyme. There will be a second enzyme which will convert that glutamate moiety of the charged tRNA molecules to glutamine. So the tRNA which is charged with uh, which was previously attached by amino acyl tRNA synthetase with glutamate, that has been converted by to glutamine with the help of the second enzyme. Okay, so the presence of the second enzyme actually is removing the need for glutamine tRNA synthetase. Nevertheless, an amino acyl tRNA synthetase can never attach more than one kind of amino acid to the given tRNA. Well, this has to be remembered that one amino acyl tRNA synthetase will attach specific amino acid to that charge, to that tRNA molecule to make them charge. So here we have seen that although some bacteria they lack the tRNA synthetase for charging tRNA with glutamine, but there is a second tRNA synthetase, there is a second amino acyl tRNA synthetase which charges tRNA with glutamate, but that is not specific. Then what happens? A second enzyme then comes which converts that glutamate moiety of the charged tRNA into glutamine. In this way, your tRNA become charged with glutamine. So here the presence of the second enzyme removes the needs for that glutamine tRNA synthetase. Okay, so they have no glutamine tRNA synthetase, they have glutamate tRNA synthetase. So with the help of glutamate tRNA synthetase, they charge the they charge glutamate into the tRNA, which is for the glutamine. The second enzyme then convert that glutamate into glutamine. So thus the need for the glutamine tRNA synthetase is eliminated. So it's not always true that all the organisms have the 20 amino acid tRNA synthetase. Okay, so and it also has to be remembered that the amino acid tRNA synthetase can never attach more than one kind of amino acid to the tRNA. Okay, so this is the main thing. Okay, so I think you have able to understood what I have tried to say. Still I am going to again discuss this part. So well, I have said that there are organisms, most organisms have all the 20 different types of tRNA synthetase. They have all 20 amino acid tRNA synthetase, but this is not always the case. Like some bacteria, they lack synthetase for charging the tRNA for glutamine. So the amino acid tRNA synthetase responsible for charging the tRNA with glutamine is absent in some bacteria. So what does it do? How the tRNA is attached with glutamine, by which amino acid tRNA synthesis enzyme can carry this process? Well, there is another enzyme. There is another amino acid tRNA synthetase which charges tRNA with glutamate. This amino acid tRNA synthetase, which is specific for charging tRNA with glutamate, they also charges tRNA with glutamine as well. How? First, what it does, this amino acid tRNA synthetase attaches the tRNA with glutamate. Next, what happens? There a second enzyme then comes which converts that glutamate moiety of the charged tRNA molecules to glutamine. In this way, presence of the second enzyme removes the need for that glutamine tRNA synthetase. Okay, so by two steps reaction, it actually fulfills the need for amino acid tRNA synthetase, which is responsible for charging tRNA with glutamine. Okay, but it should be remembered that a specific amino acid tRNA synthetase will specifically attach a specific amino acid to the tRNA, not more than that. Okay, I think you have well to understood what I have tried to say. Next is okay, so this is the glutaminyl amino acid tRNA synthetase with tRNA GLN with tRNA um, glutamine. GLU will be showing for glutamate. GLU means glutamate and GLN is glutamine. So this is the tRNA molecule. As you can see, this is the structure of tRNA attached with the glutamine amino acid. Okay, this is a real picture of amino acid tRNA attached with specific amino acid. Okay, next that I will going to study, I'm going to teach you is about ribosome. So about the ribosome, let us see. So ribosome is composed of two sub-assemblies of RNA and protein known as large and small ribosomal subunit. So ribosome is made up of two subunit. One is large ribosomal subunit, another one is small ribosomal subunit. Each of these subunits are made up of RNA, that means rRNA, and proteins. The rRNA called as ribosomal RNA, and some proteins made this large and small ribosomal subunit. Well, the large ribosomal subunit contain an important place known as peptidyl transferase center, which is responsible for the formation of the peptide bonds. So the large ribosomal subunit contain a region called peptidyl transferase center. On that peptidyl transferase center, it is responsible for the formation of peptide bond between the amino acids which has been carried by the charged tRNA within the ribosome. The small ribosomal subunit have a decoding center in which the charged tRNA will read, or you can say decode, the codon units of the mRNA. The small ribosomal subunit have a decoding center. Now within the decoding center, all the charged tRNA will come and bind and will read, or you can say decode, the codon units of the mRNA. So two important things we have seen, the peptidyl transferase center and the decoding center, right? Peptidyl transferase center found within the large ribosomal subunit, and this region is important for formation of peptide bonds between the amino acids carried by the charged tRNA within the ribosome, whereas the small ribosomal subunit have this center called decoding center, which is responsible for charging the which is responsible for the tRNA to read or decode the codon units of the mRNA. That means within the decoding center, the charged tRNA will come, will bind, and will in the ribosome and will read the codon units of the mRNA. The large and the small ribosomal subunits are named according to the velocity of their sedimentation when they are subjected to centrifugal force. So during centrifugation, what happened? During centrifugation, the large and the small ribosomal subunits are, according to their velocity, they sediment at different positions, and that's why the unit is used to measure that sedimentation velocity, and that is known as Swedberg unit or S unit. The larger the sedimentation value, the larger the sedimentation velocity, greater will be the value of the S. So when the ribosomes are subjected to centrifugal force during centrifugation process, the large and the small ribosomal subunits are getting separated within the centrifuge tube according to their sedimentation velocity. Okay, and they are placed at different positions, and according to which we actually name them as S unit or Swedberg unit. Okay, and larger will be the S value, greater will be the sedimentation velocity of that particular molecule. There is more thing about this Swedberg unit. If you see later on, if you go depthly about this Swedberg unit, you will find out that it has more mathematical derivations related with this, how they get separated and how they are calculated. That is actually said if you go depth into this part. But up to this, you have to just understand that S is the Swedberg unit, and Swedberg unit is a unit used to measure the sedimentation velocity, right? Now in bacteria, the largest subunit have a sedimentation velocity of 50 Swedberg unit, and that's why they are named as 50S subunit. So in bacteria, which are prokaryotic organisms, the large ribosomal subunit have a sedimentation velocity of 50 Swedberg units. That's why we name the large ribosomal subunit of bacteria as 50S ribosomal subunit, whereas the small ribosomal subunit is called as 30S ribosomal subunit, and the full intact prokaryotic ribosome is referred to as 70S ribosome. Well, eukaryotic ribosomes are larger, and eukaryotic ribosomes, their sedimentation velocity is quite large. They have 60S and 40S ribosomal subunit. The 60S ribosomal subunit is called large, and the 40S is called the small ribosomal subunit. Together, they form 80S ribosome. So whether you are seeing the large ribosomal subunit or small ribosomal subunit, each of these subunit is composed of ribosomal RNA and many ribosomal proteins. So the large ribosomal subunit and the small ribosomal subunit both are made up of ribosomal RNA and proteins. Okay, now wait. Okay, so we were here. So ribosomal proteins and ribosomal RNA are the components that make up the large and small ribosomal subunit. But there are different types of ribosomal proteins and ribosomal RNA. In bacteria, the 50S ribosomal subunit contain 5S rRNA and 23S rRNA along with many ribosomal protein. Approximately 34 different types of proteins are found within the large ribosomal subunit of bacteria. So in bacteria, the 50S subunit, which is the large ribosomal subunit, contains a 5S rRNA, 23S rRNA, along with many ribosomal proteins. Okay, about 34 different proteins found. Whereas in small ribosomal subunit of bacteria, called as 30S ribosomal subunit, it is this 30S ribosomal subunit contains a single 16S rRNA. This is that 16S rRNA which is complementary to the signed Dahlgren sequence, or you can say it is complementary to the ribosome binding site of the mRNA. So this is very important, and it also has many other different proteins as well, ribosomal proteins as well, which has not been mentioned in here in these notes. Okay, so 23S rRNA and 5S rRNA, along with many ribosomal proteins, make up the large ribosomal subunit of bacteria, which is your 50S ribosomal subunit. 23S rRNA is involved in catalysis of peptide bond formation between the amino acids actually, when you will see during the translation elongation process. In the small ribosomal subunit, which is your 30S ribosomal subunit, it contains 16S rRNA. So 16S rRNA is an important component found within the small ribosomal subunit. And the sequence which is observed in 16S rRNA is complementary to the ribosome binding site which is found within the mRNA. In this way, with the help of 16S rRNA, small ribosomal subunit can bind to the mRNA in the ribosome binding site in prokaryotic translation initiation process. In eukaryotes, the 60S subunit contain 5.8S rRNA, 5S rRNA, and 28S rRNA, along with 49 different types of ribosomal proteins. If you see the eukaryotic ribosomes, the large ribosomal subunit found within the eukaryotic ribosomes, also called as 60S subunit, it has 5.8S rRNA, 5S rRNA, 28S rRNA, along with 49 different types of ribosomal proteins. Whereas the small subunit, which is the 40S subunit of eukaryotic ribosomes, they are made up of only 18S rRNA with 33 additional ribosomal proteins. The small ribosomal subunit found within the eukaryotic cells, they are made up of 18S rRNA along with 33 additional ribosomal proteins. Sorry. So I hope you have understood what I have said. Let us see the picture. Then I will go to this point. Okay. What I have said. This is the picture. So first I will try to show you the picture of prokaryotic ribosomes. You can see very clearly prokaryotic ribosomes are called as 70S according to the sedimentation velocity where it goes. The large ribosomal subunit is called 50S, small ribosomal subunit is 30S. Molecular weight has been mentioned here. The large ribosomal subunit, which is 50S, composed of 5S rRNA, 23S rRNA, which is very important for peptide bond formation. This rRNA is involved in peptide bond formation in during elongation of translation. 34 different types of ribosomal proteins are found, whereas in small subunit it is made up of 16S rRNA. This is very important rRNA because it helps in binding or base pairing with the ribosome binding site found within the mRNA, and 21 additional proteins which was not mentioned in my copy. Well, let us see the now eukaryotic ribosome. So this is the eukaryotic ribosome. Eukaryotic ribosome is known as 80S. It is divided into large ribosomal subunits 60S and 40S. The large ribosomal subunit made up of 5.8S rRNA, 5S rRNA, and 28S rRNA, which perform the same function of peptide bond formation, and 49 different types of ribosomal proteins. Whereas the small ribosomal subunit is called 40S, it is made up of 18S rRNA and 33 different types of ribosomal proteins. Okay. Now, central to the mechanism of translation is a cycle in which the small and the large ribosomal subunits associate with each other and the mRNA and translate the target mRNA. Then again, these subunits dissociate each other after each round of the protein synthesis. This sequence of association and dissociation is called ribosomal cycle. So, what is ribosomal cycle? It simply means during the process of translation, the large and the small ribosomal subunit have to assemble, have to associate each other, and also they have to associate with the mRNA actually. Then they have to translate the target mRNA, and after the end of translation, then again they have to dissociate for the next round of another translation process to begin. This sequence of association of the ribosomal subunits to the mRNA, then disassociation after translation is over, and then again association will occur to a different place of mRNA. That is called as ribosomal cycle. So I hope you have understood what ribosomal cycle means. Association of the subunits, then translation occurs, then after the end of the translation again the ribosomal subunits dissociate so that they can carry out the next round of translation. This process is known as ribosomal cycle. Although ribosome can synthesize only one polypeptide at a time, each mRNA can be translated by multiple ribosomes. So, one ribosome can only synthesize one mRNA molecule, and not synthesize, sorry, one ribosome can only synthesize one polypeptide at a time, and each mRNA can be translated with multiple ribosomes. Each mRNA can be translated with multiple ribosomes which are synthesizing that polypeptide chain from the ribosomes. So an mRNA bearing multiple ribosome is known as the polyribosome or simply called as polysome. This term polysome you have studied in rough endoplasmic reticulum, where the membranes of the endoplasmic reticulum is placed by the ribosomes attached with ribophorins. These ribosomes are catalyzing the synthesis of polypeptide chain on the same mRNA. So each mRNA molecule can be translated by multiple ribosomes. So each mRNA can be translated with multiple ribosomes simultaneously, which is known as the polysomes. So an mRNA bearing multiple ribosome is called polyribosome or polysomes. So a single mRNA is able to direct the simultaneous synthesis of multiple polypeptides using an arrangement of the ribosome. So if this is the single mRNA, so multiple ribosomes can associate and starts the synthesis of the polypeptide chain Okay, this is the 5 prime, this is the 3 prime. So in this way polypeptide synthesis is being done. Where orange I have shown you the polypeptide synthesis, it is getting elongated as the ribosomes are moving to the downstream, and multiple ribosomes are attached to the same mRNA, that is called as polysome. So this was about the polysome. Next, okay, some problem is there. Let us try to say one by one. As we know, okay, I have to change the color of the pen. As we know that both polynucleotide and polypeptide chains have intrinsic polarities. So we know that polynucleotide and polypeptide chain have intrinsic polarities. So for each of these molecule, we can ask which end of the chain is synthesized first. So we know that polynucleotide and polypeptide chain, whether it is polynucleotide, they have a polarity. Polynucleotide also have a polarity. They have a N terminal, amino terminal end, and a carboxy terminal end. So for each of these molecule, we can ask which end of the chain is synthesized first. Well, DNA and RNA are synthesized by adding new nucleotides to the 3' end, right, on the growing polypeptide chain. Now, if I say the polarity of the DNA, RNA 5', 3', 3', 5', and new DNA molecules, new DNA nucleotides are added to the DNA at the 3' end to the growing polypeptide chain. But in case of polypeptide, there is a N terminal and a C terminal, and from the N terminal the polypeptide synthesis begins. It has been observed that for the synthesis of the polypeptide chain, each new amino acid has to be added to their C terminus of the growing polypeptide chain. That means towards their C terminus we have to add the amino acid in order to increase the length of that polypeptide chain. So in the polypeptide chains also have a polarity. They have a N terminal, amino terminal end, and a carboxy terminal end. New amino acids are added. New amino acids are added to the C terminus of the growing polypeptide chain. This must be remembered. This is the polarity. Okay, so the newly formed amino acid, it is attaching to the polypeptide chain on the C terminus end. Okay, and the ribosome catalyzes this attachment of the amino acid to the C terminus end of the growing polypeptide chain. Ribosome catalyzes the single strand reaction, the formation of the peptide bond. So ribosome is catalyzing the single chemical reaction, which is the formation of the peptide bond. It is catalyzing the whole process, attachment of the amino acid to the C terminal end of the growing polypeptide chain. Okay, this is catalyzed by the large ribosomal subunit, and this reaction occurs between amino acid residue at the carboxy terminal end of the growing polypeptide chain and the incoming amino acid which has to be added to the chain. So the reaction is catalyzing by ribosome. Okay, that's good. It is catalyzing the formation of peptide bond. But between whom? Between whom and which amino acid? The amino acid which has its carboxy terminal end of the growing polypeptide chain and the incoming amino acid which has to be added. So the N terminal of the incoming amino acid which has to be added to the chain with the carboxy terminal end of the amino acid of the growing polypeptide chain will be involved in that peptide bond formation. Okay, and that will be catalyzed by the ribosome. Both the growing chain and the incoming amino acids are attached to the tRNA. As a result, during peptide bond formation, the growing polypeptide is continuously attached to a tRNA. So both the growing chain, the growing polypeptide chain and the incoming amino acid are being attached with the tRNA. Ribosomes, the large ribosomal subunit, mainly the 23S rRNA in case of prokaryotes, are mainly involved in catalyzing the growing of the polypeptide chain by by the help of a reaction. The reaction occurs between the amino acid, the carboxy terminal end of the amino acid of the growing polypeptide chain with the amino group of the amino acid which has to be incorporated, which has to be added to that chain. Okay, and the actual substrates for each round of amino acid addition are two charged species of tRNA. So which are the substrates which are going to do this reaction? Obviously the tRNA who have that amino acid attached with them, that is the charged tRNA. One tRNA is called peptidyl tRNA, which is elongating the chain. Multiple amino acids has been attached as a result of elongation process with the new amino acid tRNA which is getting inserted to the incorporated to the chain. The amino acid which is attached with the amino acid tRNA will going to be attached to the amino acid with the peptidyl tRNA. The 3' end of these two tRNA are brought close in proximity. They brought close in proximity to each other by ribosome. So ribosome, what they do? Ribosome only allow that two tRNA. One is the peptidyl tRNA where the elongation has been taken place for a long time, and the amino acid tRNA where the newly charged tRNA incorporates into the growing polypeptide chain. Their 3' ends are brought close to each other, and this positioning, by closing that position of that 3' ends of these two tRNA, it allows the amino group of the amino acid tRNA to attack the carbonyl group of the peptidyl tRNA. So how does the peptide bond formation occur? Let us see. So once we get a peptidyl tRNA which is located within the ribosome and an amino acid tRNA which has just been inserted into the ribosome so that they can match with the codon sequence of the mRNA, and now that amino acid tRNA is carrying the amino acid which has to be attached with the peptidyl tRNA. So what happened? The 3' ends of these two tRNA, the 3' ends of these two tRNA, that is the peptidyl tRNA and the amino acid tRNA, their 3' ends are brought very in close proximity. They are brought in very close position. It is done by the ribosome, and this close positioning allows the amino group of the amino acid tRNA to attack the carbonyl group of the peptidyl tRNA. So amino group is the group which is found in the amino acid of the tRNA, amino acid tRNA. This amino group attacks the carbonyl group of the peptidyl tRNA. So what does it occur? So after close association of the 3' ends of these two tRNA, again it has been says that the amino group of the amino acyl tRNA attack the carbonyl group of the carbonyl group of the carbonyl group of the amino acid which has been attached to the peptidyl tRNA and form a new peptide bond. This reaction is called peptidyl transferase reaction. So you can see in this picture, this is your two tRNA. One is referred to as amino acyl tRNA. So this is your amino acyl tRNA and this is your peptidyl tRNA. This is your peptidyl tRNA. Why we are saying peptidyl tRNA? Because during elongation, multiple amino acids has been attached with the tRNA molecule. So what happened during peptidyl transferase reaction? This amino acyl tRNA has been brought by the small ribosomal subunit incorporated within the ribosome. Then proper codon anticodon pairing occur by the tRNA with the coding regions of the mRNA. And then what happened? The ribosomes places the ribosomes uh, positions these two tRNA in close proximity. Okay, they position them in very close proximity. So the 3' ends of these two tRNA, the 3' end of this tRNA is containing the amino acid, and the 3' ends of this tRNA containing this amino acid, it places in close proximity, that is done by the ribosome. Now what happened? Now we see this positioning causes a reaction. What type of reaction? You can see the amino group, you can see the amino group, this amino group of the amino acyl tRNA attack to the carbonyl group of the peptidyl tRNA. And what happens when the amino group of the newly entered amino acyl tRNA attack to the carbonyl group of the peptidyl tRNA? What happened? The amino group of the amino acyl tRNA attack to the carbonyl group of the peptidyl tRNA. It leads to the formation of a peptide bond. So a peptide bond formation occur between the amino acid found on the amino acyl tRNA with the peptidyl tRNA amino acid. So this you can see attachment occurs. This amino acid has been attached with this amino acid which was the amino acyl tRNA, and now which was the peptidyl tRNA, it fully loses its polypeptide chain. It fully loses its polypeptide chain. This is what it called as peptidyl transferase reaction. And this peptidyl transferase reaction is catalyzed by the ribosomes. Okay, this is done by the ribosomes. So can I repeat it? Can I repeat it? From here it has been says that both polynucleotide have a polarity, polypeptide chain also have a polarity. polypeptide chain have a polarity in this way. They start from the N terminal end, and they have a C terminal end or carboxy terminal end. N terminal end is called the amino terminal end, whereas C terminal end is the carboxy terminal end. So like nucleotides have a 5 prime 3 prime polarity, right? Okay. Now here why I am talking about the polarity. Ribosome actually catalyzes the single chemical reaction, which is the formation of the peptide bond. So ribosome here catalyzing the formation of the peptide bond, and this reaction is occurring between the reaction of peptide bond formation is occurring between whom, between the amino acid residue at the carboxy terminal end of a growing polypeptide chain with the incoming amino acid to be added to the chain. So here two amino acids are involved to form the peptide bond. So here the amino acids which are involved for the peptide bond are the amino acid which is found on the amino acyl tRNA, that amino acyl tRNA which is now incorporated within the ribosome to for elongation of the translation process, and it is this peptide bond formation is occurring with also with the peptidyl tRNA. Peptidyl tRNA is the tRNA where already translation process was occurring. Here the tRNA is attached with more than one amino acid by peptide bond as a result of elongation. So for the next round of elongation, what happened? The ribosome is actually catalyzing that formation of peptide bond, and it is occurring between the two tRNA. One tRNA having the amino acid attached called as amino acyl tRNA, which has been introduced to the growing polypeptide chain, which has to be introduced to the growing polypeptide chain, and another is called a peptidyl tRNA, which was already present as a result of elongation. So both the growing chain and the incoming amino acid attached to the tRNA as a result during the peptide bond formation, okay, of the growing polypeptide is continuously attached with the tRNA. Now how do they carry out the reaction? The ribosome allows the 3 prime end of these two tRNA in close proximity. So ribosome, what they do, they allow these two tRNA to be brought together in close proximity, and here you can see a term called accommodation occurs, so that the tRNA can be placed close. This positioning allows the amino group of the amino acyl tRNA to attack the carbonyl group of the peptidyl tRNA. So the amino group of the amino acyl tRNA will be attacking to the carbonyl group of the peptidyl tRNA. ঠিক আছে? Okay. So after close association of this 3 prime end of these two tRNA, amino group of the amino acyl tRNA is attacking to the carbonyl group of the carbonyl carboterminal amino acid attached to the peptidyl tRNA and form a new peptide bond, right? And this reaction is called peptidyl transferase reaction, catalyzed by the ribosomes. So you can see an incoming amino acid carried by the tRNA molecule, and this is the peptidyl tRNA which was already attached with the ribosome. So here we can see the amino group is attacking to the carbonyl group of the peptidyl tRNA, which leads to the formation of a peptide bond. You can see here a peptide bond has been created. A peptide bond has been created between the two amino acids, and in this way the peptidyl tRNA is transferred to the amino acid tRNA, which will be now become a peptidyl tRNA, and this tRNA is now becoming a no charge tRNA because it has no amino acid molecules attached now. So this is the peptidyl transferase reaction which is done by the ribosome. Okay, okay, this is the reaction that has been said here, has been mentioned here. Okay, so you can see the same thing I have written, how it attacks to the carbonyl group, the amino group, how it is attacking to the carbonyl group of the next amino acid of the peptide tRNA, and how the peptide bond formation occurs. This is the peptide bond that you can see. So I have written here again in my book that the 3' ends of the amino acid tRNA and the peptidyl tRNA are brought to close proximity to each other in the ribosome. So the 3' ends of the amino acid tRNA and the peptidyl tRNA are brought in very close proximity, in close in position, it to say. This positioning causes the amino group of the amino acid tRNA to attack to the carbonyl group of the last amino acid of the peptidyl tRNA. Again I repeat, this positioning, so when they are close very, when the 3' end are placed very close to each other, it causes the amino group, which is the NH2 group of the amino acid tRNA, to attack to the carbonyl group of the last amino acid of the peptidyl tRNA to form a new peptide bond. Hence, the growing polypeptide chain is transferred from the peptidyl tRNA to the amino acid tRNA. Now the peptidyl tRNA is no more peptidyl tRNA, it becomes uncharged tRNA, whereas amino acid tRNA now becomes a peptidyl tRNA, and it will carry out the next round of peptide bond synthesis. It should be noted that N terminus of the protein must be synthesized before the C terminus. That has to be remembered. And the whole reaction occurs within the large ribosomal subunit at the peptidyl transferase center. And this peptide bond formation is driven by breaking the high energy acyl bond that that actually joins the growing polypeptide chain to the tRNA. So the whole reaction is actually driven by breaking the high energy acyl linkage that joins the growing polypeptide chain to the tRNA. Okay. So this is the reaction you can see that I have mentioned with you, that how it is attacking to the carbonyl group after positioning in close proximity. Now they have formed the peptide bond, a polypeptide chain. Okay. Okay. So the next thing that is given, okay, this is the overview of the events of translation. This is the polysome. Okay, so in the next video I will discuss about the, now the next video is the main part of your translation. I will discuss about the initiation, elongation and the termination of the translation process. So just study through these notes that I have given, and also the video lectures that I am providing with you through this YouTube channel, so that you can able to understand about this part. Okay, so that's all for today's lecture. After some time, for this time's lecture, after some time I will go more, I will try to finish off this whole translation process within this day. Okay, so